Hello and welcome back to Will Unemployed. Today I'm going to talk about curing society's most feared diseases. Cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes, heart disease. And I'll even talk about our chances of creating age-reversing drugs and 3D organ printers. So prepare to be surprised, excited, and disappointed. So before we talk about the fountain of youth and cyborgs, we need to talk about the beginnings of modern medicine. A century ago, even in industrialized nations, people were dying of all sorts of terrible diseases. And these are things many people today haven't even heard of. Dysentery, typhoid, diphtheria, typhus, tuberculosis, and measles. In fact, the person who used to wear this jacket I found in a used antique clothing store may have died of a disease called cholera. Thankfully, between 1900 and 1950, we cured a huge number of diseases. And they were relatively easy to cure and required little government funding. And this was because some of the most troublesome diseases in this time period had really simple solutions. Like a vaccine, or making sure our drinking water doesn't contain human feces. In the early 1900s, we also discovered penicillin, which is probably the most important drug in medical history. To see just how fast medicine changed people's lives, let's check out life expectancy. In 1900, people lived an average of 47 years. College students were middle-aged. Only 50 years later, people were living 68 years on average. That's an extra 21 years, a 44% increase in lifespan. Around mid-century, the government began making bigger and bigger contributions to science to speed along scientific advancements. Makes sense? In 1940, the government contributed $300 million to all science research. That's about $6 billion in today's money. Today, our government spends 5 times that amount on medical research alone. Despite today's record-breaking funding, we've only experienced a 7-year increase in life expectancy in the last 50 years. That's 3 times less than what we experienced from 1900 to 1950. One of the most common myths in our society is that scientific advancement is increasing at an exponential rate. Not only is this wrong, but the opposite's happening. This trend is pretty obvious to see. Penicillin was first isolated 85 years ago, and since then, no drug has been remotely as revolutionary. It's almost as if all advancements and discoveries were apples on a huge apple tree. The lowest hanging apples cost the least amount of energy and resources to grab. But every time we make a medical discovery or advancement, it gets increasingly harder to reach the lowest hanging apples. In our case, we eventually get to the point where it costs millions or billions or trillions of dollars to buy this really fancy ladder so that we can start picking apples from the top of the tree. And these apples may not even be better than the apples that we picked at the bottom of the apple tree. This is a trend that we see in every field of science and technology. Will we ever find a successful cure for cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, heart disease? Everything. Will we discover age-reversing drugs? Maybe. But if we do, it'll probably take longer than we expect. Will college graduates like myself be able to replace their livers with 3D organ printers? Maybe, but honestly, they won't be able to afford it anyways. If we are able to create these things, it's gonna cost an unimaginable amount of time and resources. One of the biggest reasons why we seem to be stuck is because modern diseases are incredibly complex. And many of them are caused by the lifestyle encouraged by our own industrialized society. Our situation might seem kind of bleak, but I don't think it really is. If current trends continue, we're going to have to stop relying on drugs and technology to fix our every problem and start taking preventative measures instead. See, we have another nearby apple tree with lots of low-hanging fruit, and it's called the do everything you can in the first place to be healthy tree. Many diseases associated with highly developed societies have similar risk factors, like not getting enough exercise, smoking, eating food that's excessively processed and has an expiration date in the 22nd century. If we focus our energy on preventing diseases, we can greatly reduce our chances of suffering from chronic diseases in our society like heart disease and diabetes. And we'll live longer. Now obviously the quality of our life can't be measured in years. But I do think if we focus less on drug development and more on maintaining a healthy lifestyle in the first place, we could easily tack on another 21 years to our life expectancy and have fun doing it. Well, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching Will Unemployed, and on this vlog I'll talk about anything that I think is interesting or important. So if you have a topic you want me to discuss, post below, and I will see you next week.